let's say. Okay? So, the floor is yours.
Yes, so I'm going to present my research that I have conducted in the framework of my master's thesis on the impacts of climate change and groundwater contamination in the basin of Garraf, which is in the south of Barcelona. Okay, so a little bit of overview of the contents. So just to give an overview of the objectives, the goal is to assess the impact of climate change in Catalonia with specific attention to the basin of Garraf, analyzing data of temperature and precipitation, and analyzing the groundwater hydrochemical trends in the same basin through the analysis of primary and secondary data of both contaminants and physicochemical parameters. So to give context, I think that we are all aware about the scientific framework of climate change, but in the sixth assessment report of the IPCC, there was a specific focus on the Mediterranean area, assessing that the surface temperature has already surpassed the pre-industrial level by 1.5 degrees, with, of course, an intensification of extreme events. And regarding the precipitation, the variability is higher, but droughts are expected to increase, especially in the northern part of the basin. Regarding the contamination in the European Union and specifically in Spain, the European Environmental Agency has witnessed an improvement in the use of fertilizers, of nitrogen-based fertilizers. But in Spain, we can see that in Catalonia, which is this bar over here, there is the higher percentage of monitoring sites with an excessive concentration of nitrogen recorded. And the threshold of 50 milligrams per liter is the drinking limit imposed by the World Health Organization for groundwater. Garraf is a coastal basin in the south of Barcelona. This comes from the delimitation of the Catalan Water Agency. Garraf is both an administrative division and a hydrographic basin, who takes the name from the massif which is present in the area, spanning for about 30 kilometers along the coast. Regarding the hydrogeology of the area, it is pretty interesting and complex because we have a karst landscape, so it's not easy to predict the groundwater flow and the direction, but we can use, for example, geological maps to help ourselves, because in this kind of geological units, the groundwater flow follows the main geological fractures and faults, so we can use it to predict the groundwater flow. The most characteristic feature of the area is the submarine groundwater discharge, and it is also important for my study on contamination, because in the karstic landscapes like Garraf, these kind of fluxes are more consistent than in other types of aquifers, and they can have some consequences on the local ecology, on the marine ecosystems, on the coastal ecosystems, in terms of nutrients budgets. So this area is famous for being particularly rich in anthropic impacts. The most famous one is the Val de Joan landfill, which used to collect the waste from the metropolitan city of Barcelona, but it's no longer active due to poor management practices. And of course we have some quarries over here, but my main focus was on the agricultural areas, which are the yellow one, and on the farming areas, which are the blue one, from the Copernicus land cover map, and also the area vulnerable to nitrates, delimited by the Catalan Water Agency. This delimitation was based on another threshold, which is 37.5 milligram per liter, so below the drinking threshold. Okay, so regarding the methodology, both primary and secondary data were employed. Regarding the secondary data, so the data coming from open databases, these were all the stations, the monitoring stations, which were employed. There are several types of data, so physical chemical data, piezometric, coming from different agencies like Catalan Water Agency, the Ministry of ecological transition. And this is, for example, the network of meteorological stations from the Catalan Meteorological Service, of course, for all the region of Catalonia. The second source of data was the field survey in Sitges. The main objective of the survey was the quantification of the STD fluxes, but in the framework of my analysis, I mainly focused on the physical, chemical, and nutrient concentrations results coming from this survey. So regarding the results, the first result is the trend of temperature in Catalonia. So first of all, this is the mean annual temperature, which was obtained by processing and averaging all the daily data from 28 stations. The temperature stations are all the red dots, and the blue one are the ones for precipitation. So of course there is a consistent increase, and we can see that 2022 was the highest, was the warmest year recorded so far. In the second graph, we can see the anomaly of the mean annual temperature. For this calculation, I based my calculation on the first 30 years of the dataset. It was taken as a reference baseline to assess the anomaly with respect to this first 30 years, according to the following formula. So, of course, also here we can see a consistent increase. Specifically focusing on the basin of Garraf, these temperature data were obtained from the station of Prat, located here. So first of all, the mean annual temperature is similar to the one registered in Catalonia, and the daily temperature, which I have this is analyzed, is also increasing. These are the main results. So there was overall an increase of almost 2 degrees from the 1950 up to 2022, and an increase, an average increase of 0.26 degrees per decade. So regarding extreme events, I based my calculation on the indices provided by the World Meteorological Organization. I'm not going to go through over all of them, but I mean the results are consistent with the prediction for with the IPCC predictions. So an increase in the summer days, hot days, and an increase also in tropical nights and scorching nights. So each index has its own definition. And of course here these indexes are more significant statistically speaking because they're based on percentiles. So of course as well an increase of warm days and warm nights, and an increase of cold days and cold nights per year. So speaking about precipitation, so even here the calculations were based on the station of Prat. Here we see the daily time series, and here the monthly variability. This is a coastal kind of rainfall regime with 2 peaks, one in spring and one in autumn, and the variability is higher in autumn and is of course lower in summer. Here we can see the 50 percentile. And the other percentile, 5, 95, 25, and 75. Okay, so the anomaly was also calculated with the same procedure as for the temperature, and it allowed us to visualize in a better way the wet and the dry years, and also the droughts, the prolonged droughts. We can, for example, spot these 3 great drought periods over the last 20 years, and we are again falling in another, it seems that we are falling in another period of drought. Yes, so moving on. Also for this case, the extremes were calculated. These are some extremes regarding the total volume of precipitation. This is the total annual volume of precipitation. This is the total volume of precipitation in the 5% percentile and in the 1% percentile, and they are all decreasing. These are also some indices regarding the volume. This is also interesting. This is about the frequency. So the number of consecutive dry days seems to be increasing, and on the other hand, the number of consecutive wet days has been decreasing. And also the intensity has been slightly decreasing. So regarding the piezometric level, this was actually the most tricky data set to analyze because the data were fragmented, were not homogeneous. I implemented data from the Catalan Water Agency, the Ministry of Ecological Transition, and the Geological and Mineral Institute of Spain. These are some piezometric level in inland sites. It seems that they have been decreasing, but for example, these data from the Geological Institute are not updated, so we need more investigation on this topic. And regarding the coastal side, the trend is similar. So we cannot draw a uniform conclusion on this data. Regarding the hydrochemical analysis, so these are the main concentrations of nitrates. This is an average among the period 1995 to 2021 and 2, which were all the available data on the page of the Catalan Water Agency. So here it's just a spatial mapping. Here we can see a spatial interpolation. Actually, it's not conceptually meaningful because in a karstic landscape, it's not so obvious to have such an interpolation, but at least provides a better visualization of the trend. And comparing these results with the area vulnerable to nitrates and to the land use cover map, they are consistent. So we have higher concentrations here, where there are many farms, and a lower concentration in this side. So also the nitrates have been plotted. In this case, we have a reverse trend. So we have a higher concentration on this other half of the basin, and the same phenomenon is present for ammonium. So it suggests maybe that the nitrification process has been taking place in the area. So the nitrates are maybe converting to nitrates and ammonium. And this is backed up by the analysis of chlorides, which is a proxy for saltwater intrusion. So it is a reverse trend, because in this case the higher concentration is in this sector, and some studies suggest that saltwater intrusion promotes the nitrification of nitrates. But also in this case, I need to develop more my investigation. This is an evolution of the saltwater intrusion. These are the three biggest droughts over the last 20 years. And it seems that the saltwater intrusion is actually increasing. Yeah, it's consistent with also with the climate change prediction. I was not able to find data on the pumping sites of the basin, because of course saltwater intrusion is promoted firstly by overpumping. But we can kind of try to relate them with climate change trends. Okay, so these are the results from the field survey in CGES. So this was the process which allowed me to obtain the quantification of the fluxes, which are displayed in orange. And the concentrations of nutrients are perfectly correlated with the fluxes. This is space. These are the electrodes of the ERT instrument. Suggesting that actually the nutrients come from groundwater. So it's a contamination coming from inland, from the basin. And finally, this is a further analysis on the nutrient concentrations. First of all, the nutrient limitation plot, which shows us which is the the main nutrient in a specific sampled area. The data were clustered according to the different origin of the data. So these are the data coming from seajets. These are the data coming from inland in the basin, and these are some further offshore monitoring stations. So regarding the data from seajets, it seems that the main nutrient is actually dissolved in organic nitrogen. So there is a preeminence of this compound, actually of this of nitrogen, of nitrates, nitrates, and ammonium. Then regarding the inland data, there is a prevalence of silicates, which is consistent with the karstic landscape of the basin. And regarding the offshore data, they are kind of neutral in this kind of graph, as they are expected to be. And the nitrogen specification allow us to understand which is the dominant nitrogen species in the geochemical analysis. This plot is more complex, but the sum of nitrates and nitrates dominate the inland data, while the data from Aguados are also kind of dominated by ammonium compounds. And so, in conclusion, I need to better investigate the results of this study, especially the part regarding the biogeochemistry, the chemical dynamics between the different nutrients. Here I just put some of the SDG main goals regarding the analysis. And thank you for your attention.
Okay. Ask some questions or comments?
I want to make some comments. In DOMENICO, you have done a lot of work during your months here, but I think you have explained it too fast. Okay, it's only 20 minutes. Since we started, it's a lot of information, a lot of data. It's a congress.
I realized while I was speaking.
Okay, yeah, I think it's important maybe to, if you can highlight a little more the main results. One about the climate, that you saw some things. The other thing about how it behaves in nitrates in the graph. And the other thing is in the last one, that why we have ammonia, I mean, why we have these differences in the points of variable zones of shore. I don't know if you have the plot. I suppose that you're going to use it when you defend your master in Italy. I think it's important to put the figure here with the location of the sampling point, remember? That we discussed that. This is maybe done now, we have plenty of time. Okay, maybe show the main plots or the main, what are for you the main findings of the work you have been doing here?
So far, the main findings regard the location of the contamination, because I didn't investigate yet the biogeochemical dynamics. So the main finding is the location of the contamination. So we can, as I was saying before, for the nitrogen-derived compounds, especially for nitrates, the main affected area is this one, and this is due to the agricultural activities, as I was showing to you earlier.
But the question of MODPATH is in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have data or you don't have contamination.
I don't have data.
Okay, then it's different. You have to be careful with the message. Yeah, because the fact that they are reaching gives you a zero doesn't mean it's zero. It means that there is no data. So you have to be extremely careful with that. No, it's really, the work is correct. The interpretation, I'm talking about the interpretation.
But I would say, could you go back?
Go ahead.
I just
Sorry.
wanted to show the stations.
Yeah.
I forgot to say that these blue dots were provided by the group of Karma and Nuria for the project on the Valdejon landfill. So actually the open database didn't provide data in this area. Some improvements in interpretation were made by adding these other points, which were
So, but what I mean is that if you have this information, which is fantastic, It means that you have a lot of it covered and some part which is uncovered. So then I wonder even if the maps should even represent that part. I'm just going to show you an example. You go to the gridging where second or third times you present the results in gridging. Go one more. Yeah, this one, for example. Now you look at the right. You see this big red thing?
Yes.
This block. It's only with one data. Probably.
Here?
Yeah, that one on the right. Yeah, that's easy differential.
Yeah.
This one, yeah, this one. So this part is that one, of course. But this is glitchy. So this is not true. Right? Look, there's no data.
Yes.
So I would say that maybe when you show this, it would be better for you to just cut here. But I already can do it here. You cut here. And you only show this part.
Okay.
Maybe, yeah, because this is not true. This point is not true. Here it is possible that it's correct because you have a lot of points, so you have been doing it properly. But here, look at the shape. Even at the shape, if you look, here you have a dipole, which means that basically you have 2 points, which should be these two, I guess. I'm not sure. One of them is very high, one of them is very low, and then to create the dipole, we have this.
It's the merge that you're using, the merge that you're applying to.
It's the interpretation method, which is, in this case, is incorrect. But that doesn't mean anything. I mean, the right point is still there. It's just the shape, the extension of the point.
Yes, maybe
Which
this
is
map
misleading.
is more significant. This map is more significant than.
Yes, exactly. So be careful with this. When you interpret it, remember that bridging is very good for interpretation. It's horrible for extrapolation.
Okay.
So what you can do is just make like a polygon of the points in which you have data more or less, which is of course the left and the south, and then the south.
So just considering the coastal area itself.
For example, even if you want the left part should be okay because you have a few points, yeah, okay. And then when you present maps, it's fine, but when you present grid maps, be careful. Drop them and then.
But these are punctual data, so it's not, they are not series of these parameters.
Time series.
Yeah, I just like these concentrations are punctual data of one sampling.
No, there are many samplings
This average.
conducted in this period, but they were not continuous over time, so it was very difficult to see a trend. So I prefer to make an average, and also because I checked this kind of trends, and the contaminated areas remain the same also like 20 years ago, so there was not like changing the pattern in this sense.
Because I think that maybe when you apply grading with piezometric data or some kind of bibliometric data, it's more efficient in some way because you have some kind of temporal serial, continuous temporal serial of this parameter, but this is my perception, maybe I'm wrong. But when you have only one sample of each season or some period, or maybe one sample per year, it's not comparable with the behavior that is happening in this area, especially when you're planning to put the boundaries of the merge that you're using in GIS, I think so, that you're using some kind of artist or
from this software.
yeah, out of software.
No, but it's right, he showed first temporal series and then the spatial distribution. So I think it's correct. What you think is correct. Just I think that the full picture is there. It's just a matter of just don't go beyond what you can, because in the data, for example, these values are also an extension of you're using, I'm not sure, maybe you're using single grading, and that means that it goes for a zero, always here. But
Yes,
you know it's true. You know that there is no data about it. That doesn't mean it's a zero, it's a different. No? And then it's kind of misleading that that's the only part which is not correct, let's say, not correct, but the rest, I think it was, that's maybe an effective function.
Yes, and I knew that this graph would have generated more debate.
Well, no, this one or the next one.
The interpolation.
Yes.
There was some previous discussion about this.
No, it's not the map, it's not incorrect.
No,
It's just that the uncertainty at that point is huge. That means this number doesn't mean anything. That's it. It's just a matter of. So this is your best prospect, but it's most surely incorrect. Yeah? In particular, It might be right because you also know what you're saying, that all the anthropic activities are on the side. So it's, of course, you will have to put a number, it's a zero, obviously. So that's what screeching does.
Yes.
It is smart. Yeah?
Actually,
But then, yeah.
actually, all this area comprises the delta of the Llobregat River, and this is why it is the most affected by saltwater intrusion.
Right. Yeah, but you also have this, the same, not also what intrusion is fine when you are close to the boundary, so it comes. The points are just interpolation. But here you only have one aquifer, no? Here you only have one aquifer, no?
Cars,
They are cards.
No, did you say if you have points outside your border in order to the cleaning to be better?
It's not continuity, it's a different aquifer. And in terms of statistics, a different population that should take it.
Does it make sense that you apply the variance of the kriging that you estimate for the error? So by the variance you obtain from the kriging? Maybe you
Yes,
can use it as an indicator.
See, I was planning to also put it in in the presentation because I obtained also the standard deviation.
Which is actually need a center, which was the word you
Yes.
Yes.
but nevertheless, I see a pattern. I mean, if you look at the nitrate, with more or less, yeah, where you have this agriculture and these sources of nitrate, you see a higher concentration, and it's low, precisely at the site where you have a lot of ammonia.
Yes, yes.
And so the explanation, that I think I see, that pattern I see.
I think it's
And the
correlated.
reason for that,
I think it's correlated with saltwater intrusion, which is also in the same area.
so the ammonium comes from the sea.
No, I think that saltwater promotes the nitrification of nitrates, which in the end becomes nitrites. Nitrites.
Okay. But because the thing is, the nitrate also comes from you have these maps of.
But there is agriculture there.
There is agriculture.
This one?
No.
Okay, this one.
The yellow thing is agriculture.
Yes.
And that is precisely where you have a lot of high concentration of nitrate. So that could be also.
Yes, this is true. I have to go more in depth about this explanation. Yes. But for example, some points of high nitrogen perfectly coincide with the farming, which are more responsible than agriculture for these high levels of nitrates. So, for example, also this point here, I think it's related with this farm here, this point here, this farm here. And this comes from blue are farms, livestock breeding. And this comes from completely different databases. This comes from ACA, this comes from Copernicus, but it's perfectly overlapping.
You said that there is a correlation between the seawater intrusion and ammonia, right?
Yes.
Who's the last plot?
This one?
Yes. Explain what means this sample.
Okay, which
What
one?
means Igualos data, what means offshore data, and what means inland data.
So, the Igualos data were the ones sampled on the beach of Sitges. The inland data were the one coming from the ACA. And the offshore data, I forgot to put them in the data collection slide, but they were taken from some stations, some offshore stations in front of Garraf. Which was the question specifically?
What is about, when we are talking about the ammonia, you said that there is ammonia with the seawater intrusion. Here you see samples that go from nitrate dominated to ammonia dominated, even in Igualos.
Yes.
Explain.
Yeah, actually, the points from Igualos are pretty much
So that's also where was it on the map?
It's
The
the
yellows.
it's the beaches, it's just.
Yeah, that's the first one.
Which one?
Is it where there is a lot of ammonia?
It's here. It's around here. For example, what do you want to say more?
No, I just want to know whether it's in the bones and it's
Yeah, more or less it's here.
so it's close to the high ammonia.
But did you have high concentrations of ammonia in Iguanas? Can you show it?
I think I don't have it here, but it followed the same. Yes, I just put nitrates in nitrates, but the ammonium followed the exact same pattern. It was perfectly correlated with the fluxes.
Mean is the image flow in that plot, okay? Flow of LGD against nitrate and silicon.
Well, the problem is that in Ecuador you have full sections, and everything, so you have a lot of urban activity, which provides a lot of money. Then, if you go a little bit higher, you have all the grain and something like that, wine gels. So that's most typical of nitrate. And then what you have there is a huge confusion. Not you, I mean, the full, what is confused because you get at the same time ammonia and nitrate, which is incompatible in principle. But of course they are mixed there, so you get everything there. I'm not sure what's going on. I mean, you know much more what is going on there, but it's a huge amount of processes taking place there. Do you have this plot with ammonia?
I would
I
think
have
that
on my laptop, but
maybe it's happening two processes of the nitrogen cycle at the same time. And this is the reason that you have high concentrations of one and high concentration of the other.
yes,
It's not like they are consequences of one only process. It's like maybe they are other
different sources.
that increase in the ammonia.
The ammonia is more than
Yeah, but it's not easy to track this. That's the reason that maybe it will be confusing because you're expecting that everything is coming from the denitrification and it's not the case. Maybe.
Yes, now they continue. Yeah, as I said, it's not complete, so.
At the same time, in CGS, in Ecuador, we are not sure about the geological context of Ecuador. That's something that we were speaking in the last field campaign. We want to know, we know that it's karstic, but how is the geology in this context? We have karstification, other kind of geological phenomena there. We are sampling.
Can I? But it's a question, but also it's a comment there. Thank you, Domenico, for the presentation and for all your work. I mean, most of you know what Domenico was doing, but it's important to mention that he came, like, I don't know, maybe Monday, and the next day was Sunday in Ecuador. So this data is collected the day after he arrived, and since then he did a lot of work, much more than what we expected probably with Albert, because these last two slides were the ones that we were expected to to do with this final master thesis. So all the rest, all this integration of regional data was something that Domenico did. So yeah, it was super nice to have you here and we learned a lot. And from this last graph, I think it's super beautiful, and I want to mention something. That here we are comparing like groundwater flows HDD, like that what we capture with the seepage meters devices, with the chemistry of the water. And the correlation is super nice, and we did not expect to see such correlation. What is also nice from this graph is that nitrate is coming through a submarine spring. I don't know if you can see the numbers below this figure, but this peak in nitrates and HDD is like 40 meters far away, more or less. Domenico, I don't know if it's 40 meters or so.
Yes.
Like 30 meters far away from the beach, so it's a huge submarine spring carrying a lot of nitrates.
No, sorry, these are the electrodes.
The electrons. So we have to multiply it by 2, right? Because it just shows it's 2 meters.
There are 34 electrodes. Yes.
Yeah, so that is cool to see, and also this high ammonium that we see in agua dulce. We were talking with Domenico and discussing about the origin of this ammonia, and it seems this is something that, well, here comes the question: why do we have so much ammonium there in agua dulce in comparison with the rest of the samples inland, where we don't have this high ammonium? Why the ammonium is rich in agua dulce?
Yeah, it can be some degradation of organic matter. It can be different sources of organic matter. I don't know, some algae, some. Yeah.
And this is, we want to compare this.
There is some, the waste disposal site there.
What?
The waste disposal site, I don't know whether it could have an effect as well.
Yes, but.
I think there is another reason, because Hydrology was constructed quite recently, so in the 90s, I guess. And it was constructed probably using dump from some place, because they wanted to enlarge us to get a some area into the sea. So maybe what they used, instead of clear sand to build the harbor, who said maybe it was a lot of it was not the best material. So I think it's also an anthropic reason due to whatever they used to construct that harbor, I remember it because we were, I mean, it was late 80s, early 90s, when it was reconstructed.
However, but we cannot see in the last plot the samples that show more ammonia and the ones with higher salinity.
I think they said, because it's also when you put all these sediments into the sea to make some, to enlarge the beach. Remember that beach, I mean, of course you were never there, but before when you were probably 5 years old at that time, but I was a little bit more. But this was an area which the beach was very, they really wanted to bring a lot of space from the sea.
Yeah.
So it's an area that was built on purpose. There are many places in the world in which they have done all kinds of catastrophic things, like by trying to win some space. For example, in San Francisco, all the Marina Park, which is the most expensive one, they also wanted to win space into the sea. After it came, it was the first part to take effect. So here, whenever they do that, they never do it.
By dredging, I mean, dredging, just like you're feeling in the. But, well, yes, because this was a rocky beach. The people told us that this was not a sandy one like this.
Of course, that was the bad part of seashells, the part where they wanted to go.
To reply to your question on the landfill, yes, it also has an impact, but especially in terms of other contaminants that I didn't analyze, like metals, like toxic substances. And there was actually a study from the Water Agency assessing the degree of correlation between the landfill and the downstream wells.
But where is this landfill located?
Here.
Now,
So it is more or less also within the area of the high ammonium statement.
Yeah, it can be also another source. Yes.
So, Domenico, and can you go back to this map where you show the chlorine? You have 3 maps with chlorine. Yeah, you just show it. This one. So, I guess the question here is, do you have the same, or could you build the same for the ammonia also? Like, I think, regardless of how accurate this map could be, you see that in time there is a change in the chloride concentration, so can you build the same for ammonia?
Yes, I tried. The results were not so satisfactory. I try to, on the other hand, I try to plot the evolution of saltwater intrusion because the aim was to correlate it with climate change in some way. But I think that it depends more on the extraction rate than on climate change itself, on droughts themselves.
This was more like a vulnerability index or something that you use for this. No, I'm asking.
For this,
For show the evolution, you use some kind of vulnerability index or?
to show them, to create the maps. No, it's just the average concentrations over these
The chloride.
time periods of chlorides, yes.
Yeah, I said that because you were supporting the idea of ammonium related to chlorine. So, because here you have different patterns in time, maybe, just maybe this could help you in
Yes.
justifying this.
Not sure.
No? Okay, I will try.
But I would agree with Mark that listening to Leonardo, Jose, and Domenico, on Jose, I think we need more masters. It's very good.
So thank you. Okay, other questions?
Any questions from the online audience? I don't think so. You could look at the